Hi, I'm Damien DiPaola from Ristorante Damiano in the north end of Boston on Hanover Street. And today I'll be preparing Sicilian tuna meatballs. We make these meatballs with ahi tuna, sushi grade. This is about a pound of tuna, which is what's called for in the recipe. I already have some chopped up, so I'm just going to show you how I like to cut the tuna into little cubes, just like that. Slice it this way first, and then after, cut it the other way. You don't have to be too perfect when you're doing this. You want this coarse. When we're mixing the meatballs, we mix them very gently, very tenderly. We don't want to over mix them because we don't really want to mash them. So in here right now, all I have is some chopped tuna and some pignoli nuts. This is roughly a little more than the pound in the recipe, but that's okay. Tiny bit of salt to taste. Then we add the currants in. Of course, you'll have the recipe on the website, so I've made these so many times that I eyeball it by now. I don't really follow a recipe. And you're just really going easy here. You're not mashing any of the ingredients together. A little bit of Italian parsley. Not too fine. Coarsely chopped is better. American culture, a lot of people just use the parsley for garnish, but believe it or not, the parsley has a really good flavor. I mean, you could just get some Italian parsley flat and dress it with a little extra virgin olive oil and lemon, and you can eat it like that as a salad. Or you make an octopus salad, you put the whole leaves of parsley in there, or even a calamari salad. So again, we put that in. Scallions. Pretty much use the bottoms of the scallions, not the tops. The tops of the scallions you can reserve for stock. You can reserve it for garnish. I could put it into a sauce that I have for a later recipe, right there. And the scallions you want to chop as fine as possible. Not too thick, for this recipe anyway. Scallions. See, just folding, nice and easy. We're not mashing anything in here. Lemon juice. Fold it in. The lemon's going to cook it a little bit, so not much. It's going to give it a little bit of a cooking. And the panko. And we put a little bit of combination of grated Parmigiano and grated Pecorino. It's a 50-50 mix of both. I mean, you don't have to mix it. You can go, preferably you're just going to use one cheese. Use the Pecorino Romano. But I like to mix it because you get the sweetness of the Parmigiano and you get the salty spiciness of the Pecorino Romano. It's good to do these in vegetable oil or in olive oil. I mean, personally, when I make them, I like to use 100% olive oil. You really don't want to use extra virgin because extra virgin does not have a high burning point. Ideally, you want to use a canola oil or even a peanut oil. But I use olive oil in the restaurant because I like the flavor that the olive oil gives it. And when we're cooking them in the restaurant, we cook them rare. We just get a sear on the outside. We don't really overcook these so that they get dry on the inside, you know? I'm going to put a little bit of extra virgin olive oil now inside the mix just to wet it a little bit and to give it that great olive flavor. And now at this point, we're going to mix them a little bit better. Okay, so I have some Wondra here, which is a special type of flour that chefs use. It's a really good flour because it's very light. It's not processed, and when you fry, it gives volume. So if you're using something batter mixed, it's always great to use Wondra. So the oil's heating up. I have about, I want to say, maybe an inch of oil in there. Make them nice and tight once you roll them, so you don't want to mash them while you're rolling them. Give them a light roll in the flour. And it looks like they're going to break, but They won't if the oil's hot enough. I like to make them around this size because I do like it a little bit rare inside. And I think when people come to a restaurant and they know they're having ahi tuna, they like their tuna a little bit rare too. You want to control the flame. Once you get it to a point where you see in the pan that it's starting to sizzle and it almost has like a mini deep fryer effect, you want to keep an even sizzle. So lower your flame, control your flame a little bit so that it stays that consistency. The more ingredients you add into the pan, it's going to bring the temperature of the oil down and it's going to get colder. So maybe then you need to raise it a little bit. All right, so these are going to fry. We're going to get them golden brown on both sides. Very, very tender and very gingerly with these because they will break. About a pound of these, you'll probably make maybe 10 of these tuna meatballs with about a pound of ahi tuna. You do want to use fresh tuna. You want to make sure the tuna has this beautiful, it's almost a magenta color. And you want to make sure the tuna is really, really dry and not soggy, so that when you touch the tuna, it's somewhat firm. Your finger is not just going in it and breaking it up. Okay, so at this point, they're golden brown on the outside, and they're rare on the inside. And that's what they should look like when you're done frying them. Okay, so now we're going to make the sweet and sour sauce for the tuna meatballs. Agrodolce. Agrodolce is a typical Sicilian sauce. Agrodolce meaning sweet and sour. So a little bit of extra virgin olive oil on the bottom of this little sauce pot that we have. We're going to let the oil get hot while we are chopping the red onion. So the red onion we should just do in a nice small dice. You know, again, I mean, a lot of people really emphasize, you know, perfect little pieces. Just give it a nice small dice. We're going to caramelize the onions, which basically means we're going to cook the hell out of them without burning them. We're going to get all the sugars out of the onions. The onions are almost going to melt into the sauce. That's what we're trying to do, is make it so the onions are almost melting in the sauce. We're going to go now into the hot olive oil. Pinch of salt. We're going to let it cook high for a little while. Once the onions start to wilt and soften, we'll lower the flame a little bit so that it doesn't burn and turn black. Because once the onions burn, they really don't taste too good. Also, what I like to do is while the onions are caramelizing, I like to put the capers in there too. Capers are usually salty, they're a little bit briny. What happens is when you caramelize them with the onions, you'll get the capers to get a little sweeter too, and they'll taste a lot better. Okay, this is starting to caramelize down rather nicely. Now, in the event that the onions are going a little bit too fast for you, and you sense that they're going to burn and you have to save them somehow, what you do is, which I don't have to do because they're actually perfect right now, but just a tip, you add a little touch of water in them, just a little bit. And the water will evaporate, it saves the onion for now, and then you can continue caramelizing. At this point, I like to add the brown sugar right in with the capers and with the onions. And you don't want to keep that in there too long, but you just want to give it a quick stir. Like that. Then add the vinegar. And this is all to taste. I mean, you can never follow a recipe exactly to a T. So what we want from this sauce is we want sweet and sour. You want to taste the sweet from the sugar and from the onions, and you want to taste the sour from the vinegar and from the capers. So you need to taste the sauce. Don't just go by the recipe. Taste it. And then we'll finish it with the tomato. Now the tomato sauce, you'll already have it cooked. So finish with the tomato means finish with the tomato. You're not going to cook it for too long. You're just going to basically heat it up because you don't want to reduce the tomato sauce because the tomato sauce should already be perfect. And once you reduce the tomato sauce, you concentrate the tomato flavor, and when you do overcook tomatoes or you reduce them too much, it can make the tomato sauce bitter, and you really don't want to do that either. So this now we're going to cook for maybe 5 minutes low and just let it simmer, just to blend all the flavors together. All right, so now we're ready to assemble the tuna meatballs with the agrodolce, the sweet and sour sauce. So, as you see, we cooked the sauce for about 4 or 5 minutes after we put in the tomato. We have a really nice consistency. You want it to be thick, but you don't want it to be chunky. But you don't want it to be watery. You want it to be thick enough. And you'll see how thick it is when we plate it. I like to put the sauce on the bottom, but you could do whatever you want, you know? This way, when the sauce is on the bottom, the tuna meatballs themselves stay crispy on the outside. Okay, so there's the sauce. You see the little capers and you see the currants in there. Now see, these are very rustic looking. It looks like they're ready to fall apart, but that's because we kept the tuna really chunky. We didn't mash it. We didn't grate it. This is basil oil, which in restaurants, you know, we make things look pretty with it. It's just extra virgin olive oil, and what we do is we blend some basil into it. We let it sit overnight just to give it a nice color. And that's it.